Alright people, we're about to hit the home stretch. Keep your eyes peeled and the hammer down. Giddy up. And it's also time for our final segment, where I sat down with SideShow creative director Tom Gilliland to discuss the World of Warcraft diorama. Alright, well we're here today to talk with SideShow's creative director Tom Gilliland about the upcoming World of Warcraft diorama for Blizzard's World of Warcraft Burning Crusade. We're here to sort of discuss the evolution of the piece and sort of what were the challenges involved in creating this cool sculpture.
Well, hey man. Well, obviously the challenges of dealing with something as broad as World of Warcraft is a little bit daunting right off the bat. And, you know, with this Burning Crusade expansion that came out, it obviously opened up a lot of new content, and we kind of focused on that. So getting the initial thing of, you know, what are you going to pinpoint as being the thing to start with out of the way, we were able to start to, I think, what was probably the most challenging aspect of this entire piece, and that was trying to de-engineer the artistic style that has gone into creating the World of Warcraft art, you know, such as it is, whether it's in the art or the game itself.
So you decided to base this piece off of one of the art of paintings that was done for the Burning Crusade, correct?
Absolutely. In fact, when we kind of started the relationship, it was just maybe about 6 months before this expansion came out. This piece of art comes out as sort of the flagship of what they want to present with this game, and I think it's the first time they introduced 2 new races, so a really big event for the World of Warcraft. So it really felt like a piece that also fit into the type of compositional diorama studies that we typically do, where there's, whether it's our Marvel Versus line or our Star Wars line, we usually try and work with these really great kind of dual character fight combat scenes that have some really great composition. And in this case, we had the Blood Elf Rogue was pretty much perched on top of the Draenei's raised shield, created this great sort of stacked composition. It just really served as a really perfect piece to kind of go with.
I know the art is very different than the Blizzard World of Warcraft world or universe that everything is, where the in-game style is much more of an anime sort of meets medieval stylization, and then the paintings or a lot of the art of work is all a much more highly detailed fantasy art, more of like the neoclassical fantasy art stuff that you come to expect. What was your reason for going with the painting?
Well, it took a little bit of time to kind of figure our way back to this. And I mean, the issue of style in relation to Warcraft is kind of a big, broad topic, and I'm sure guys at Blizzard could illustrate this more dynamically than I do. But just from our outsider's perspective, it seems like there's a real challenge, just even within Blizzard and developing stuff for the World of Warcraft itself, and that is that you have to balance what your game engine can actually produce in the way that how much detail and how much look characters have with what magnificent artistic look you might be able to have if you had no constraints. And I think what happens is in the World of Warcraft you have what works for the game and what they would love to have the game look like. And I think that's what all this artwork represents. And now that they're doing graphic novels with Jim Lee and everything else, they're able to kind of create additional or alternative styles that bring in more detail, more accoutrements on the characters, and just little things like tattoos and all kinds of other stuff that just doesn't really suit the game machine well, but looks great in the art and allows them to kind of create, I think, a broader, deeper mythos to the World of Warcraft itself. We actually had to kind of go through a whole process working with Blizzard designers to kind of identify, well, this belt actually should look like this. Even down to the last belt buckle, there really wasn't anything that was left undesigned. And I think that this process was used by both parties, SideShow and Blizzard, as a way to kind of create a more definitive statement about how a character could look from the World of Warcraft. One thing that we're fooling around with now is an alliance-specific piece and a horde-specific piece, so that if you play the game, you understand what I'm saying. The game is really divided into these 2 factions, and it really kind of colors your whole experience of the game. So and people have a very almost obsessive loyalty to one faction or another, to the point where you could go meet someone and say, "Oh, you play Warcraft? Oh, what faction you on?" And the next 5 minutes of your conversation can be either friendly or not so friendly. So
But anyway, I have interest in talking to you.
It's kind of interesting. It's just that the property kind of like transcends itself and kind of creates a culture. And I think that's something that we're trying to capture with these pieces. It's not just the dynamic of the exciting, source material, which, the sort of sword and sorcery kind of foundation allows us to do all kinds of, really awesome pieces. But you've got this kind of really sensitive fan base that's really invested in the characters, the races, and the elements of the game that allow you to if you make the right thing, you're basically going to be, serving up what the fans really want most.
Yeah, and the fan base is enormous. I mean, it's harder to find people who don't play the game.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say how many times that's come up, and it's like, oh, you play Warcraft. It's like, yeah, I take my next breath of air too.
Exactly. The World of Warcraft Blood Elf Rogue vs. Draenei Paladin diorama is up for pre-order on the SideShow website at SideshowCollectibles.com.